Welcome to another Experience Matters with Eric Newton. I'm Eric Newton, and today we're lucky enough to have Jeff Scott with us. Thanks for joining the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you've been a popular guy for a very long time, and I'm honored to have you on the show, and I'm sure everybody's going to be interested to hear some of your stories and some of the things we're going to talk about today. So let's just dive right in. So I always try to get a little bit of background from everybody that comes on to the podcast, just to kind of give everybody a feel for how you got to where you are. So tell the viewers like how you got started, from birth to now.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it under an hour and a half.
Yeah.
No, I was born in
Cliff Notes.
Yeah, Cliff Notes version. That's right. Now, I was born in Florida, and then whenever I was
Tallahassee, right?
Actually, I was born in a small town, Arcadia, Florida.
Oh, okay.
Which is about 2 hours south of Orlando. And whenever I was one, my dad got his first college coaching job at the Citadel. So I actually went up and he coached at the Citadel for Art Baker for 1 year. And then, back then when my dad was a graduate assistant there at Citadel, the hours were really bad. The pay was really bad. And there's a funny story that the athletic director where my mom and dad are from down in Arcadia, athletic director for the high school called my mom and trying to get a hold of my dad. And they wanted to offer him the head job at the high school. And my dad was at work. My mom said, "We'll take it." So we were there for 1 year, and then we moved back to a little small town, Arcadia. My dad coached high school ball there for a couple of years, and then whenever I was 3 years old, we moved to Tallahassee, and so 1983, and my dad started out as a graduate assistant there, and then he was the tight ends coach, then he was the recruiting coordinator, then eventually the offensive line coach and offensive coordinator. So, that was a great time as a young kid to grow up. I mean, Bobby Bowden was the head coach, absolutely incredible man. I tell people all the time, Coach Swaney has a lot of the same characteristics and traits that Coach Bowden had. And so, my elementary school was actually about 200 yards behind the Florida State practice fields.
Oh, wow.
So in the fall, as soon as the bell would ring, from really the second grade on, I would, run across over to the football practice field. I'd hanging out there with the players and, mostly playing with the kickers because they're the ones that don't do anything during practice. When I was over tackling dummies, all that, then after practice is over, I'd go up with my dad and they'd watch film and then I'd go home with them that night. So I really kind of grew up around college football and was on the sidelines since I was about 7 years old. And so just a lot of great memories from that. And then, also got to watch my dad kind of grow in his career. And he was the offense coordinator when Florida State won their first national championship there in 92, 93. And then from that, he got the head job at the University of South Carolina. So I was in the middle of my seventh grade year in school whenever we moved to Columbia. And we were very excited about that. Got to Columbia and ended up going to Hammond School there. So spent all my high school years there in Columbia. And then, after my dad's last season, he gets fired for not winning enough games there at South Carolina. And really not sure where we're going to go because you always kind of think that the best things are going to happen and you're going to continue to have the success. And I can remember I was a senior in high school. I was committed to go play quarterback at Furman. And my dad actually got fired the day of my senior sports banquet. And, back then I don't know why my dad did this, but they made him go to a press conference that he did after he got fired to talk to the media and all those things. And I remember as soon as we finished that press conference at Williams-Brice, we had to walk across the street to the fairgrounds and I had to walk into my senior football banquet, So just a very tough time at a, critical age there, 17, 18 years old. And I'll never forget the night before my dad got let go. He called my brother and I back into his little sunroom in near his bedroom. And he was telling, I have a younger brother, John, who's 3 years younger than myself. And he was telling both of us what was getting ready to happen the next day. And he shared Jeremiah 29:11 that the Lord has great plans for us, and we have to trust in that. And I remember at 18 years old, I didn't really want to hear that at the time. I was probably questioning God a little bit. Like, hey, my dad's used his platform as a college coach to share Christ and speak at a lot of churches and do all these things. And in my mind, it's like he's supposed to have success. He wasn't having it. And so, I was pretty bitter there for a few days. And then 3 days after he got let go at South Carolina, Tommy Bowden got hired at Clemson, obviously with the Bowden connection, with my dad working for Bobby Bowden. Tommy, asked my dad if he'd come to Clemson and be the tight ends coach. And the coaching salaries were a lot different back in 1998. Then, you could take a couple zeros off. So my dad was definitely in a position where he needed to go coach somewhere. And so he accepted the job to come to Clemson. And I was fired up about that. A lot of people ask me, how hard was that going from being a diehard Gamecock for 5 years to being a Clemson Tiger? And I'm like, well, when they fire your dad, it's actually really easy and kind of fun. And so another quick funny story about that is, obviously I knew that we were going to Clemson a couple of days before it got announced in the media. And I was playing in the North-South football all-star game. And so I wore a Clemson hat there. And Steve Canehill, who played quarterback for my dad a few years earlier there at South Carolina, Steve was actually coaching the all-star game. So he sees me get out of the car and I've got this Clemson hat on. And he doesn't know, a dad's going to Clemson. He thinks I'm just doing it kind of, being a smarty or something. Yeah. And he's like, come on, Jeff, really? I'm like, oh, no, it gets better. I was like, Dad's going to coach there next year. And he's like, no way. And so from that.
Did he have a rat tail?
He still had his rat. I think he still had his long hair for sure. But, so Tommy Bowden, he heard that I was going to play quarterback at Furman, and he actually offered me a walk-on opportunity to come to Clemson. And I actually had shoulder surgery after my junior year of high school. So, and I was still able to play quarterback, but I knew, how many times you throw in college, two-a-days and all that I wouldn't have the durability to do that. And I'd probably have to move to receiver. So anyways, Coach Bowden asked me if I would come walk on at Clemson. I knew since I was 11 years old that I wanted to be a college football coach. And, Coach Bowden comes from Tulane. Rich Rodriguez was the offense coordinator. They were 12-0 the year before Tulane. So I said, going to Clemson, being around those coaches would probably help me down the road being a college coach. So I came to Clemson and, ended up meeting my wife, Sarah. She was a freshman at Clemson whenever we met. And we dated all the way through and graduated with a degree in secondary ed math. And Sarah and I graduated in 2003 in May. We got married in June, and then I started teaching and coaching high school ball down in Columbia in July. So got after it pretty quickly there.
And that was at Hammond, right?
Actually, no, I went to Ridgeview High School.
Ridgeview.
So I was at Ridgeview for 2 years, and I was coaching quarterbacks and receivers. My second year there, I was able to be the offensive coordinator. And the principal where I was at Ridgeview, she got the principal job at a brand new high school in the district, Blythewood High School.
Oh, okay.
And Blythewood was a $50 million school. They had a $5 million football stadium. And, Richland District 2, where Ridgeview was growing so much that they created this other school. So Dr. Budden goes to the new school to be the principal. And before she left, she came on my portable because that's where they put the first-year teachers like I was. Of course, second-year teacher, I was in portable P26 in the back parking lot. The only thing good about it is, went to practice. I had like 10 feet, and I was on the practice field for football that afternoon. But she came on my portable and told me that she was going to be the principal at Blythewood. And she said, we'd love to have you, she wanted me to apply for the head coaching job. And I was only 24 years old. I was 2 years out of school. And I'm glad I didn't say the first thing that came out of my mind was like, are you crazy? Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out how to teach math tech and coach the wideouts over here.
Yeah.
But I said, yes, ma'am, I'd love to. And so there's like over 120 coaches applied for the job, coaches from all over the Southeast. I think there were 8 coaches that had won state championships at different schools. And she goes with a kind of an out-of-the-box hiring me as a 24-year-old. And so, I think anytime that you're kind of moving up in your profession, there's always that kind of one person outside of your family that really sees something special in you and gives you that opportunity. And so Dr. Sharon Button was definitely that person for me. So I would go to Blythewood the next year. I'm the head coach. I get hired, entire staff. We only had 9th and 10th graders, so we played a JV season that year. And we were the largest team in 3A. And actually, Chuck Jordan down at Conway tried to talk Dr. Button into us going to 4A because we were eventually going to be there in 2 years. And he was trying to get down into 3A. She asked me about that. I said, absolutely not. If we're in 3A, we can be in 3A, let's be in 3A. So we're the largest team in 3A. So we went undefeated on our JV season. Then my second year at Blythewood was our first varsity season. And really what I knew at the time as a coach was passing game. And we were just fortunate that we had a great quarterback. He was kind of a 5'11", Tim Tebow type guy. And then I had some great wideouts. So we ended up losing our first varsity game to Ridgeview. All the Ridgeview guys were mad that they got left behind at Ridgeview with the old uniforms and all that, old school.
So you pulled some of the players.
Yeah. The majority of our team came from guys I coached there at Ridgeview, and we just happened to get some of the better players that came over. And so we lost our first game to Ridgeview, and I'll never forget my principal called me into her office that next Monday, just asking about, how I think the team's going to be. And she says, if we can just have a winning record this year, that would be a great start. And I said, yes, ma'am, I think we will. And then the next week we won our first game. The next week we beat Richmond Northeast. They had like 6 Division I players that were going to Notre Dame, South Carolina. We beat them on a crazy triple pass actually. And so we kept winning, and we ended up winning 14 games in a row and won the state championship, a 3A state championship in our first varsity season.
Wow.
On the last second field goal as time expired at Williams-Brice. So that was a pretty incredible experience as a young coach. I think we were the first team in Columbia to win a state championship in 20 years. And then I think we're the first school to ever win a state championship in their first season, maybe. And one other funny story that I like to tell about that. So, after the game's over, the superintendent is coming by. He's the guy putting medals over all the coaches and players. And I mean, it's probably like, 11 o'clock at night because we were the late game.
Yeah.
And the superintendent's name was Dr. Hefner. And he gets to me and says, Coach Scott, on behalf of Richfield School District 2, we really appreciate, the state championship season. And he said, as a token of our appreciation, he pulls out an envelope out of his pocket and hands it to me and says, hey, this is a token of our appreciation. So I take it and put it in my back pocket. I'm saying thank you. And in my mind, I'm like, that's nice. It's probably a $500 check, $1,000 check, something like that. So we get home late that night, and I mean, I've got Gatorade still all over my clothes. It's like 2 a.m., right? And I pull out this envelope, and I open it up, and it was a $20 gift card to Chili's. And I told my wife, I was like, baby, we've made the mountaintop. I was like, I can buy an appetizer and maybe your drink, but that'll be it. I'll have to buy my own meal on the other side. So those were humble beginnings. And I laughed because I asked my dad after that season, like, what do I do? And my dad's comments kind of jokingly was, leave before they figure out you're not really that good of a coach. You can always come back if you always have a job. And, so 2 weeks later, Bobby Bentley, who I have a lot of respect for, Coach Bentley was winning the state championships year after year at Chorus at Kearns, while we won this one in 3A. And he had taken the head job at Presbyterian College. And PC was trying to make the move from Division II to FCS. And so he offered me the wide receivers job. And so I ended up taking that job after the Blythewood season, was a PC for 1 year.
I didn't realize.
Yeah. And there's a lot of coaches that come out of Presbyterian. They actually have a pretty good coaching tree there. But really enjoyed that. That was my first time having my own wide receiver room, first time going on the road recruiting. And it was a lot of fun. And then after that season, Clemson had a graduate assistant position open. And Tommy Bowden's still the head coach. My dad's still coaching at Clemson. And so I actually remember where I was. It was the day of the South Carolina Clemson game in Columbia. And we were at some little Ramada Inn off Two Notch Road. It was a night game. So Dad and I were sitting in his hotel room and watching football games. And I said, Dad, I think I'd like to apply for the graduate assistant job here at Clemson and leave PC to go to Clemson. He's like, absolutely not, because I was making pretty good money at Presbyterian, and as a GA, you make like hardly nothing. They just pay for your school. And my dad's like, you're going to come be a GA for 2 years, then you're going to try to get the job you got right now. I was like, no. I said, I really want to. All the college coaches that I've studied had all been graduate assistants, and I said, I don't want to, regret that I kind of took a shortcut by going straight from high school to college. I want to be a GA. So he let me go talk to Coach Bowden after the season was over. And I just had, I don't know what it was. I mean, honestly, my faith is important to me. I think it was kind of God nudging me that way, knowing that there could be something down the road. But, Coach Bowden had just signed a new contract after Arkansas came to get him in the offseason, I guess. And then Coach Sweeney is just a receivers coach. Now, those 5 years that I was gone from Clemson, I didn't play for Coach Sweeney. I played for Rick Stock still, and I love Coach Stock. But as soon as I left Clemson to go to Ridgeview, that's when Coach Sweeney came in. But for those 5 years that I was gone, I came back and worked camp with Coach Sweeney because wideouts was what I played. So that's where I went. And then I sat in a lot of his meetings, watched practice. So he kind of got to know me through those years. But anyways, I come back to be a GA in January of 2008. I'm actually working on the defensive side of the ball. PT Chris Chancellor was playing, so I actually got to coach PT. I give him a hard time about that now when I see him around town. But so I worked with the defensive backs for half that year. And then one other story that I like to tell that's meaningful to me is that summer before that first fall of 08, whenever I'm a GA, again, I'd worked with Coach Sweeney, ran the football camps. Even as he was the assistant coach, he was in charge of all the football camps. So again, the previous 5 years, I'd come and work camp with, with the wideouts. Now I'm actually on staff. And so Coach Sweeney gave me more responsibility. And so in July, right after the camps were over, Coach Sweeney called me one night and just said, hey, I want to thank you. You did a great job helping me kind of run the football camps and a lot of things. And he said that when he became a head coach one day, I was going to be the first guy hired. I said, well, Coach, that means a lot. Thank you. And hung up to my wife. I'm like, what the conversation was. I was like, hey, Coach Sweeney is a really good recruiter, a good position coach. 2-3 years from now, he'd probably be an OC somewhere. 3-4 years after that, he'd be a head coach. So, we kind of got one line in the water right there, right? And 3 months later, October 13th, 2008, Coach Bowden resigns, and Coach Sweeney is named the interim head coach. And I just, again, happened to be at the right spot at the right time. Coach Sweeney calls me that day and says, what you doing? And I said, well, I'm down here at Firehouse Subs. And there used to be a firehouse over here downtown. I said, I'm getting subs for the coaches. He said, you need to hurry up and run back. And so I came back and met with him. He told me what had happened. And because he was going to move to be the interim head coach for the rest of the year, he wanted me to coach the wideouts the rest of the year. And we had 6 games left. And he said, even though people around here don't think I'm going to get this job, he said, we're going to get this job. And when I get this job, I'm going to keep you as the wideouts coach and make you recruiting coordinator. So I'm all excited. I go home, tell my wife, again, Sarah's an alum. It was one of my goals whenever I graduated from Clemson. Billy D, who was actually running Victory Hall at the time, had all the seniors write down kind of your 10-year goals from when you graduated. And one of my goals was to come back to Clemson as an assistant coach within 10 years. And so I was meeting that at that point. So I was all excited. Told Sarah all about it that night. It's about 11 o'clock. I'll never forget ESPN ticker that night said Clemson wide receivers coach Dabo Swaney named interim head coach today. And then it went on and said 0 of the last 29 mid-season interim head coaches have gone on to be named full-time head coach in college football history. So I looked at Sarah and I'm like, all right, 1 out of 30, right? Like those are better odds than the lottery.
So you're saying I have a chance?
That's right. So we ended up winning 4 of the last 6 games. He gets named, obviously, full-time head coach on December 1st. He makes me receivers coach, recruit coordinator. And so that started, a 12-year time there with Coach Sweeney. And man, what an incredible opportunity, really just by his side for those entire 12 years and watching us, build the program and being a part of that climb was awesome. And really going back to kind of what my dad did at Florida State was very similar with Bobby Bowden of what I got to do with Coach Sweeney here at Clemson. And then obviously with my dad being on staff, that was an extra bonus. It was awesome. And then after 7 years being recruiting coordinator and wideouts coach, Chad Morris left, and Coach Swaney named me and Tony Elliott co-offensive coordinators. And so we got to do that for 5 years and just be here with some incredible players, incredible run. And then, after that, in December of 2019, I started getting some calls. And I really started getting calls the year before, but really wanted to wait for the right opportunity. And then University of South Florida called Michael Kelly, who I had known because Michael had worked for the ACC office for several years, and I got to know him through that. He was the AD at South Florida. And so we went down to Tampa for 3 years, and 2 months after I got there, COVID happened, and, the whole world changed. And, I enjoyed my time down there. We never, we were able to make a lot of progress as far as changing the overall culture and the building. We were able to raise $20 million to build a brand new indoor facility and kind of get started on a stadium project. Unfortunately, the success on the field didn't come as quickly as we all wanted it to. But, again, looking back at my dad's career, things happened for a reason. And, the opportunity to be there at South Florida and the contract and those things put me in a position, really at 42 years old to be able to decide, okay, what do I want to do? Where do we want to live? And Sarah and I talked about it, and we said, let's go home to Clemson and let's raise our family right there in Clemson. So we came back, got back here in January of 2023, and I have a daughter, Savannah, who will turn 9 next week, and then my son Hunter is 4. And so now to be able to return to Clemson, a place that, again, so special to my family and I, little did we know when my dad got let go at South Carolina. And again, I go back to him, kind of sharing that verse, Jeremiah 29:11, to me and my brother. Little did I know that move would end up opening up, a door of, the best, 25 years in our life, and really changed our life. And so now to be able to be back in Clemson, not currently working all the hours and all that on the staff, but to be doing stuff in real estate and being able to do things with people like yourself, and really just to know that we're going to raise our family right here at Clemson is an incredible blessing.
Yeah. That's an incredible story.
There's a lot to that.
Yeah. I mean, I know I've heard you tell some of the stories over the years, and they're great stories. I mean, things that, I could sit here and chat with you about for hours. But to be respectful of your time, I'm going to try to, hone in on a couple things that I've been curious about. So, tell me who in your career has had the biggest impact on you. I would assume that your dad has been a very good advisor. I mean, he's a resource for you.
Yeah.
And then who did you model your career after?
Yeah. Well, I would say the two most influential people in my life is really there's three. Obviously, starting off with my dad. Again, knowing at 11 years old that I wanted to be a college coach, and then being able to, again, Bobby Bowden did something back then that a lot of coaches back in that era did not do, which he allowed the coaches' families to have full access and to be able to be at practice and meetings. And you see that now at Clemson, and it's more accepted now than maybe it was back then. But, having that opportunity to have that access really is what, maybe got that in my mind that I want to be a coach and I want to be able to have an impact on young men. So my dad obviously has been my number one mentor, and a lot of people think it's like these 1 or 2 conversations that I've had, but it's the all the time conversations that we've had. And so, I feel very blessed that I got to grow up and watch his career and I made every one of his games. I actually held the cords for his headsets when he was the head coach at South Carolina. They didn't have wireless headsets back then, so I actually had cords. So I kind of hold his cord. So I had a front row seat to watch him as an assistant.
You could hear what he was saying.
Yeah. So that and be in the huddle at timeouts and all those things at a young age. Actually, Clemson tried to kick me off one year, so that's a whole other story. So my dad would definitely be the number one. Number two would be my high school football coach, Coach Phil Sandifer. there at Hammond. He was the head baseball coach and the head football coach. And he was kind of an old school guy, very disciplined, very organized, very structured. And there's a lot of things that I took from playing for Coach Sanford those 4 years, I think, that helped mold me as a coach. And then finally, one of the biggest ones outside of my family would be Coach Sweeney. Again, those 5 years, whenever I was not at Clemson, coming and sitting in his meeting rooms, taking notes and learning wide receiver play, and then having a front row seat there for 12 years and being able to kind of watch the build up of the program, and learned a lot of things, obviously technique wise about wide receivers. I mean, pretty much everything that I've learned. I learned some things obviously as a player there with Coach Stockstill, but as a coach, having the coach mentality, having the coach hat on, it would all be from Coach Sweeney. And, I just, again, very blessed that two of the biggest mentors for my family has been Bobby Bowden and Dabo Sweeney. Those are two people that, led the right way, obviously extraordinary Hall of Fame coaches, but also Hall of Fame men with how the type of husband and father and example there, and then also, leading with their Christian faith and beliefs. So I feel very blessed, with the impact having all those years around Coach Sweeney, and now I'm 2 doors down from Coach Sweeney, so I still get to see him a good bit.
So, besides, from a player standpoint, who was your? Well, I hate to say that was your favorite, but I won't say I want to. So, which player that you coached was the most fun coach?
Yeah, and that is hard because I had so many.
You got a lot
extraordinary players.
Wide receiver, you was
we had a good number.
Yeah,
good number of guys. But no, that was incredible. Honestly, it was a blessing to be able to have a chance to coach. DeAndre Hopkins, obviously incredible. I mean, I literally have stories on all of these guys that I could talk for hours and hours. But I would say, obviously Hunter Renfrow, it's a very unique story. I mean, I literally told Hunter after he came to football camp his senior year of high school, and I pretty much told him, hey, you're a good little player, but if you want to go to App State or one of those, have at it. If you decide at the end of it you don't like any of your offers, you want to come here to walk on, then hey, come see us. And actually, there's a little funny story I can tell on Hunter that Clemson fans probably haven't heard before. So that was literally the deal. Because one thing that you learn as a coach is sometimes the walk-ons, and obviously Hunter and his family are not in this category, but a lot of times the walk-ons and the walk-ons families are some of the more high-maintenance people because they're not going to play a lot. They want to play, and they want all these type of things. And so I've learned through the years not to kind of overly recruit walk-ons because there's a lot of maintenance that goes with that. And so I was just kind of dead honest with him. And Hunter was an option quarterback in high school, so he didn't have any film playing wide receiver. I mean, he was maybe 150 pounds, but he was a good kid, had a good reputation, great. His dad, just great, solid family. And I think he had 2 brothers at Clemson maybe at the time. So again, summer camp, I say, Hunter, if you want to come walk on, hey, that's great, but you don't have to let me know now. I'll check in with you at the end of in December, January, and you kind of weigh your options. And if you want to come, let us know. Well, I'm not going to name my buddy because I don't want to embarrass him, but I had a really good friend of mine, still very close with me to this day. He was a GA with us at Clemson, and he was currently, at that time, he was coaching wide receivers at App State. And so I get a call from him in December of Renfro's, and they had offered Hunter. I get a call from my buddy. It's like November, December of Hunter's senior year. He's like, hey, Jeff, I need a favor. I'm like, all right, what's that? He's like, can you call Hunter Renfrow and start recruiting him harder? I'm like, why? He's like, because my head coach really wants Hunter, and my defensive coordinator at App had played with Hunter's dad with his college roommate at Wofford. Well, we only have one scholarship at App State, and I really need a bigger guy, but they're hung up on Renfrow. So if you can help me by kind of calling Renfrow and recruiting a little bit, I think he'll come walk on with you, and then I can take the big receiver that I need. I'm like, sure, okay. So I literally haven't talked to Hunter since camp. So I start calling him, hey, how's the season going? Congrats on a good year. And hey, we'd love to have you come look for an official visit and all these type things. And so he comes up, we recruit him, and he decides to come to Clemson. And so about, 5 years later, Coach Satterfield, who was at during that time, was the head coach. He was he came back to visit, like coaches come and visit, all these things. And I actually told him that story. He was not very happy when he heard that story. Now, to Hunter's defense, I've told this story to Renfro several times. And number one, he gets mad at the position coach from App that he didn't want him, type deal, because he knows him well. And then number two, he's like, I was coming to Clemson anyways. Like this, I already knew I was coming. But I always laughed about that story there. But yeah, I mean, I was just blessed to coach a lot of great wideouts. And the other thing that was very unique is not only was there a very talented group, but they were very close. It was a really good chemistry, and we didn't have a lot of selfishness. Where that can happen in this day and age with the transfer portal and NIL and all these different things. And what was a huge advantage for us during that time, and I think Clemson with these freshmen that I'm seeing now, they're building towards having that similar depth that we had back in the day. But one thing that was so had a big impact in our success, in my opinion, was during those years we had 6 to 7 wideouts that could all play. And so I always would joke and say most teams have 1.5 corners that they trust, right? In other words, there's not many corners. A team's not going to play multiple corners. So if we roll our guys, that's what I did. I mean, I had 3 the 3 starters, and then I had 3 guys that would play behind them, and I would roll them so that the starters would play about 50 plays and the backups would play about 30 plays. We can only do that when you have really good backups, right? Kind of like the old Kentucky teams. I remember watching those, and they, just kind of do a whole sub, all 5 guys. Well, we would do that with our wideouts. Well, the picture I would give our guys on that is, imagine if we're getting ready to go into a 10-round boxing fight, and that other boxer, he's going to be the only boxer that's going to have to box all 10 rounds. We got 2 guys, and every round we're alternating who's going in. But by the time we get to the 10th round, you're going to be a lot fresher than he is, and we're going to be able to knock him out. So that corner that runs 4-4, well, plays 75 through 85, he's going to be running 4-7. And you're only going to have 30 plays or 45 plays in. You're still going to be running 4-4. And so that really helped us kind of knock some people out. And then when you think of that over 15 games, getting ready for a playoff, we had fresh guys that in 18 when we beat Alabama so bad, it was noticeable to me that their defense, they were worn down because they played every snap all season long. They'd already played backups. And our guys were fresh because we had done that. So anyways, that I think having that depth and then having guys that were, team players and had the right chemistry allowed us to do that. But yeah, there's no doubt I joke with people all the time and say there's a few years in there I could just kind of coach with flip-flops on and say, all right, boys, go get them. Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot to it, but those guys all worked hard, and I was really proud to see their successes and then even the success that they've had at the next level.
So what was Dabo like pre head coach? Like what was he like in the wide receivers?
Yeah, very intense. Same deal, very intense. And honestly, I think that's one thing that Don Phillips saw in Coach Swinney early on. I mean, I'd go out and watch practice. I mean, Coach Swinney was on his guys. I give Xavier Dye a lot of grief because I coached Xavier. Xavier actually coached wideouts for me at South Florida my last year there. But I was at practice, Xavier Dye's first day of practice. He was a mid-year coming in from Burns, and he was having trouble lining up in formations. And Coach Sweeney chased him around the whole practice, was throwing his hat at him. He was all over. But yeah, Coach Sweeney was very intense, but also he had, just like he does it, just the same thing you see today. He had unbelievable relationships with his players. They wanted to play hard for him because they knew that he loved them and he really wanted their best. And so it was awesome to kind of see that. and see him, use a lot of the same qualities that he has as a man, as a coach, and just really translate that into being one of the greatest head coaches of all time.
When Dabo brought in Chad Morris, that was a big hire. It was a very new and unique style of offense. I guess the Gus Malzahn.
Yeah, and Coach Sweeney doesn't get enough credit on that. I mean, that was a pivotal time in Coach Sweeney's tenure, as the head coach at Clemson. I think we were just a couple of years in, 2 years in, and fan base, there was a lot of them like, all right, this thing's better get better here in a hurry. And, a lot of the fans, I think, wanted Coach Sweeney to go hire Ralph Friedgen and some of these other proven, coordinators. And Coach Sweeney, again, he's going to do it his way. And Chad Morris had only been a college coach for 1 year. So think about this now. Go back to Coach Sweeney's got everything on the line, right? He's probably got 1 to 2 years max left. And he goes with an offensive coordinator that had 1 year of college experience. But he believed in him. And he knew what Coach Sweeney knew. We had Sammy Watkins. We had DeAndre Hopkins already on the team. We had Sammy Watkins, Martavis Bryant coming in that next class. And Coach Sweeney knew, hey, we need an offense that can get balls to the playmakers. Because sometimes, you can, have too many things in your offense. It's hard to kind of work through the minutia to just be simple. And really, the offense Coach Morris brought to Clemson was a fast-paced, exciting offense. But the number one thing is it had a way to get the ball to playmakers, and then freshmen could learn that and play early. And that's one thing that we needed. And so I think, obviously, the hire of Chad Morris and then the hire of Brent Venables, I mean, those two absolutely incredible hires that allowed, Coach Sweeney to continue taking Clemson to where he did.
And that style of offense was fun to watch because it was fast paced. That it seemed like before it was more of a you go up the line of scrimmage, you're running the game clock down to a second or two, and then you're snapping the ball. This was like you knew at any moment we could score. I mean, you score like that. And
I called it the Chick-fil-A method, right? Chick-fil-A outsells all the other fast food restaurants. So they outsell them, and they only work 6 days a week, and everybody else is working 7. But they know who they are, right? You're either going to get a chicken biscuit in the morning, or you're going to get a chicken sandwich in the afternoon, or chicken nuggets, or chicken salad. That's it. Where you go to some other fast food, and they're trying to do 12 different things, and so that's kind of an analogy for us. Is like we knew in this offense it was. I don't want to use the word simple as in that there wasn't any sophistication to it, but he basically in that offense was able to take things that were difficult for the defense, but very simple for us. I mean, our players knew if they're bringing field pressure, this is our one call. I mean, I would get on Sammy sometimes because he would see the field pressure. He would hear Coach Morris on the sideline get ready to check, and he wouldn't even look at the signal. He'd go line because he knew what the check was. But that really spoke to the players knew, and they could own that offense. And so I think it was the right offense at the right time. With the skill guys that we had coming in there. Coach Morris brought a great energy. And again, I mean, I learned a lot. Coach Morris would be another guy that I would have on my mentor list because I learned a lot from him. Him and I became very close and are still very close friends, and they talk at least once a week, even today. But yeah, that was a pretty awesome time to see, and there's also a big moment in there. Because, again, I've been a part of Clemson since I was a freshman in 1999. So now this is Chad Morris's first year. A lot of people don't know this story either. And, we're 8-0 right out the gate. And Urban Meyer, who had stepped away at Florida, was doing some TV analyst for ESPN, had done a couple of our games, had seen our offense. And so after 8 games, we're 8-0, Urban Meyer calls Chad one night. He tells him that he's getting ready to take the Ohio State job at the end of the season. He wants him to go with Chad to be the OC, and he's going to pay him, $1 million. And I think Chad was making $400,000 a year at the time, which was the most that Clemson had ever paid a coordinator. And so Chad came to me and told me that, that night, and I said, "Well, man, congratulations." He said, "By the way, ask him if they need a wideout." And I said, "Because I can go ahead and tell you right now, I've been around Clemson long enough. Like we're not going to be able to compete with that. Like if I mean, it was a lot for them to give you $400,000. There's no way they're going to do that." And I think it speaks to the changing of maybe attitudes and all that at the time, and really of leadership. Coach Sweeney and Terry Don got together, and 2 or 3 days later, Chad signed a 5-year contract for $6 million for something.
Yeah.
And I remember telling my dad whenever I saw that, I said, that right there is a change. That would not have happened in the old Clemson. We just said, man, we appreciate you being here, but we can't compete. And Coach Sweeney brought, hey, best is the standard. Let's do whatever the best for Clemson is. And so that's, again, those are just little kind of check-in places in my mind of seeing things change around here. And a lot of that had to do with, Coach Sweeney, Terry Don, and then Dan Radakovich, and then obviously President Clements. I mean, it's been talked about before, but it cannot be emphasized enough, the impact that President Clements had on the success of Clemson football. I mean, you get Coach Sweeney and President Clements together, it's like you got 2 head coaches. And this is another story a lot of people don't know. So I'm the recruiting coordinator at the time that President Clements gets hired. I remember we were all excited about who our new president was going to be. We actually stopped our offensive coaches staff meeting to pull up the TV and watch the announcement. And we kind of looked at his background at West Virginia and saw a lot of his love for football. And I think it was 2 days later, I get a knock on my office door there in the football office, and it was President Clements. And he's like, are you Jeff Scott? And I was like, yes, sir. And he introduced himself and told me he was the president. I was like, yeah, great to meet you. He's like, you're the recruit coordinator, aren't you? I was like, yes, sir. He's like, well, I'd like to help you guys in recruiting. So let me know how I can help.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, man, you're talking about a college president within the first week comes to search out who the recruiting coordinator is and tells you he wants to help. And so we got him on the phone right away with the recruits. And President Clements still has this list on his phone. And it was like the first 25 recruits over the next 3 or 4 years that he was heavily involved with. I think we went 22 of 25.
Wow.
It was incredible. And I remember that first spring, he called me during spring recruiting and said, hey, Wednesday nights from 7 to 8 p.m., I want to give you an hour. So if you'll get it lined up with what recruits' parents or recruits you want me to be on the phone with, I'll be happy to do that. So here I am talking to T. Higgins and his mom, and I'm like, hey, our school president wants to talk to you Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. Man, and not only him talking to him, but he could communicate in a way that these student athletes could see that the same thing Coach Sweeney brought to the football side and to athletics, and same thing that Terry Don and at that time Dan Radakovich was going to bring athletics, he was going to do the same thing on the school side. And so, man, it's just kind of that the synergy there in the leadership. Things changed in a very positive way so quickly, whereas maybe many years ago, when it's kind of the old-fashioned way, if you will, which how most places, I mean, it would take us, 3 years to get a pool table added to the locker room. Whereas, when you get that group put together, I mean, we were updating our dorms and all these different things, new facilities, and we were really able to kind of move up the ladder pretty quickly when we had everybody on board, along with obviously a very, very supportive board of trustees.
Yeah. So then I think Dabo and others quickly realized that the facilities were really important.
Yeah.
And so we got the best facilities.
Yeah.
And some of probably the best in the country.
Yeah.
Now things have sort of evolved. Yeah. Now you got NIL, you got transfer portal. Yeah. So tell me what you think about like all that and how it's changed and how different it is compared to. And I do want to circle back some if we may not have time, but I do want to hear your thoughts on how you took Chad Morris's offense. You and Tony took Chad Morris's offense. Like you was obvious y'all put your own little spin on it, but I'll get to that in a minute. But I am curious about how you think.
Obviously, there's a lot of things. I mean, the whole country and whole world has changed right the last 4 years, just since COVID and all the different things that brought, and obviously the change in college sports. I mean, I think number one, just kind of 10,000 foot view, I do believe with the amount of money that is generated in college athletics today is drastically different than it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And so I am for the student athletes getting a piece of the pie. How that's distributed and what that looks like, I don't know. But I'm not one of these that say, hey, they shouldn't get anything. And Coach Swing is not that way either. I think the frustrating part for us, if you will, is we were able to recruit to Clemson. We recruited players to Clemson that wanted to come here because they wanted to be, number one, get a great education at a great college. They wanted to be developed as a man, as a student, as an athlete. And it was important to us that people chose Clemson for the right reasons. And there were some battles that I can't talk about. Maybe 10 years from now, we can do this again. But there were some battles whenever we were, in that kind of 2014 to 2018, where we were recruiting against other schools in another conference that were paying players. And we had to convince some of these players not to take money. And so Coach Sweeney wanted to prove that you could win at the highest level doing it the right way, not buying players illegally, which there were several programs doing that we were recruiting against, not by using your players and just throwing them out on the street and not making sure they get their degree and all those things. So we took a lot of pride doing that. And then the rules have kind of switched where now you go buy players. So I think that's kind of the back history of why it's disappointing. I can't speak for Coach Sweeney, but I know he doesn't want a player to choose Clemson because of money as the number one factor. He wants them to choose because he wants to be challenged and developed and be a part of an incredible program, an incredible university. I'm disappointed in overall that, maybe the leadership of the NCAA, the conference leadership, the ADs, presidents, all of this. I think we kind of had our head in the sand a little bit, just knowing that this day was coming. But if we would have been a little more proactive, Coach Sweeney had an idea that he shared with our staff probably 4 years before NIL, say we should take some money, maybe $25,000 a year and put in an IRA for every Division I athlete, and then upon graduate, and they get to say $25,000 a year, and upon graduation, again, kind of keep graduation as a key part. Upon graduation, they would get access to that money. Well, a couple of things that would be awesome about, and that's not going to happen now.
I like that. Yeah.
And unfortunately, that won't happen now because we've already too far past that. But a couple of things. Number one, it keeps the emphasis on graduation. And then number two, the student athletes would not really have access to that money until they graduated and finished their career. A key part on that is by then the players know, 99% of them know I didn't make it to the NFL. So that $200,000 or $300,000, they're probably going to be a little bit more careful and wise how they spend that.
Mm-hmm.
That they got a real job making $50,000 a year, as opposed to when you give it to them when they're 18, 19. They all believe, which we love them having belief, but every one of them believe they're going to the NFL, they're going to make $20 million. So why do they need to save their $300,000?
Right.
So the sad piece is they spend all of that in college. They don't make the NFL, and now they're having some regret, right? So I don't have the answer to how to fix to where it is. I think the reality is we got to kind of see where it's going, and I'm just hoping that there will be some stabling of the foundation of college athletics. Because right now it's spiraling, and it's not.
It's a free for all.
It's a free for all. Yeah, and it's just whoever has the most money.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everybody's celebrating Miami, and obviously Cristobal's done a great job. They spent over $25 million. I heard some announcers on their national radio said they couldn't believe in this era where everybody's struggling to fight quarterbacks that Texas has two of the best in the country. Well, they're spent $5, $6, $7 million on those two. So
yeah,
let's don't act like the coaches are, the guys that figured out something nobody else could figure out.
Right.
So that part is a little frustrating, but I think we're just kind of in a really weird stage. I think Clemson's in a great spot with a leader like Graham Neff. I think it's going to take someone with his type background, business background, really a forward thinker in this era of change. So I feel really good about that. And then what I know about Coach Sweeney is he's going to do whatever he feels like is the best for the young men, number one, and the best for us to be able to have success. And so he's definitely doing things maybe behind the scenes that are going to put us in a really good spot. And I think he's going to find his way to win in this new era. And we got to kind of give him and the program, administration, everybody time to kind of work through that, because obviously all the rules and stuff are still fluid. And starting next year, schools will be able to start paying their players up to $22 million. And so, I mean, there's a lot of things that are still, kind of up for grabs that are still being decided. But I'm confident that here in a couple of years, things will level off a little bit. And hopefully we'll be able to get that to a little bit of some type of normalcy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think most people think he's got it figured out. It's just there's going to be a grace period.
And I do want to say this too: the combination, the NIL really has nothing to do in the transfer portal as far as where the inception. And both of them kind of coming out at the same time. And obviously, the transfer, you've been able to transfer for a while, but the not having to sit out a year is new. And those two happening at the same time kind of created this nuclear bomb that went off. So now not only can you buy players, but you can buy current players that are at current teams and all these type of things. And so I think a lot of times people get confused by just saying, using the transfer portal. And, the hard part about the portal is, because I know Clemson went after a couple of players in the portal last year, but, players in the portal today want two things that I'm not sure Coach Sweeney is okay giving out. And number one, if a player in the portal wants to be guaranteed a starting job, I mean, they literally have 4 teams telling them, you're going to come here and start for us. Coach Sweeney has never promised any player, high school or college player, a starting job, and I don't think he ever will. So that's one challenge with us getting players out of the portal,
right? Is
they're going to require him to promise them a starting job, and Coach Sweeney's not going to do it. And then the number two thing is they're going to require a lot of money. They want the money to be the reason that they're coming, and obviously Coach Sweeney doesn't want that to be the number one reason. So I think that is probably a bigger challenge with Clemson in the portal than it is Coach Sweeney not wanting to go into the portal. I think they went after a couple of offensive linemen last year, but again, he's not going to. Which I understand, it goes to core principles of his core beliefs. So hopefully that'll kind of change a little bit in the way things happen in the portal and all those in the future. But that's one big challenge there for sure.
Yeah, and the way I see it is like Dabo's probably going to end up being the most consistent team.
Yeah.
In the country. You look at Florida State; they're a train wreck.
Yeah,
right?
That's exactly
and
right.
It's we live in that instant gratification world of instant gratification, and it's like everybody wants to be successful now.
Right.
Well, okay, Florida State had an awesome year last year. They lost their quarterback, got unlucky there in the season. But this year they've got they're 0-3,
right?
And it's like that was the trade off. So you had one good year last year. We went 10-3.
Yeah.
That's if that's a bad season, I'll take that I'll take that every year,
Yeah, no, I think one of the things that Coach Sweeney, you bring that up, is a great point. The level of consistency, and I know last year, regular season, maybe we lost it, but we had 10 wins or more for multiple years. I think we were only second to Alabama in the history of college football. It was absolutely incredible. And even with all the stuff going on, and maybe not even use the word even, more important than ever, it's going to take a great culture, a great locker room, because you're exactly right. Obviously, you look at Texas A&M spending close to $20 million, and it's going to take culture.
Talk about egg all over your face. Like, you spent $20 million and you still don't have.
It's kind of like Nick Saban said on the ESPN a couple weeks ago. You also, it's not just spending the money; you got to spend it on the right ones. And it's hard being the right ones. NFL are about 50% success rate on first round draft picks, and they got a lot more money, a lot more time evaluating a 20 to 23-year-old than we are evaluating high school guys. So, yeah, I think Coach Sweeney has been very successful his whole run here, and it's fun watching him do it the Clemson way, and I got no doubt he's going to have continued success working through and navigating some uncharted waters.
So real quick, I know you 2 weeks ago, you sat in the stands for the first time ever.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that was my first time
Like ever in your life.
ever sitting at what I did. That was my first time at a Clemson home game a few years ago. Whenever I was at South Florida, I took the family over to Orlando for the Cheez-Its Bowl.
Oh, okay.
And I could have been down on the field, but I wanted to sit with Savannah
Okay.
and my wife. So that was my first college game as an adult ever in the stands. But being at one to Death Valley, that was definitely an incredible experience. I'm glad the game went as well as it did after the first two plays. And I know we threw a bubble screen, and then we had a tackle for a loss, and it's like 3rd and 11. I can already see people starting looking at me. They don't want to say things. And then the very next play, we had the touchdown, a long touchdown, and the lid came off. And so it was a great first game to be watching from the stands. And, I actually enjoy watching games at home on TV. When you've had to be there for your whole life, it's nice to be able to sit back and watch it on TV and kind of see replays. But,
hear the commentary.
Hear the commentary. But my children, obviously, Savannah 9, Hunter 4, they want to go to games. So I'll be taking them to games. But, yeah, I thought it'd be pretty funny if I put out a tweet after that game, okay, here are the top 10 things that I've learned sitting in the stands, and things that the fans are saying, and always wondering what they say up there. Even though my wife would tell me a few times through the years what's exactly been said up there. But the other takeaway is you can see it's great seats. I haven't had my wife's there. Her parents have had 50-yard line seats in their family for about 40 years, and it was incredible. I've typically been on the sideline. Tony was in the box when we're doing it together, and it's a different perspective. But sitting up there 50-yard line, I was like, this is unbelievable being able to see it from this perspective. And it was awesome. It was definitely a special kind of moment. And I'm sure I'll be back to a few more games this fall.
So are you going tomorrow?
I'm not. I'm actually going, a new hobby that I've taken up now that I'm not coaching is deer hunting.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm actually going down to some of my in-laws' property. They have some property down in Batesburg, and I'm going to go hunt with my brother-in-law, Ryan McDaniel, this weekend. And but I've given my tickets to a good friend, and he'll be cheering on the Tigers. And obviously, I'll be watching the game, but we're not going this week.
Well, I hope you get a big one.
Yeah, we'll see. Absolutely.
Okay, so real quick, tell everybody what you're doing now.
Yeah. Oh, man. Doing a lot of things.
You've been busy.
Yeah, the short story is whenever I got back in January of 23 and knew that I wanted to maybe step away from coaching for a little while and kind of see what that looks like. I think a lot of coaches that maybe kind of got to the point where I was there being a head coach and having a contract where they can have some flexibility. A lot of times the coaches are older and the kids are already out of the house. It's just them and their wife, so they just keep coaching. For me, I kind of got to that point with a 9-year-old, a 4-year-old. And so I'm like, man, now I could potentially be able to coach their little league teams and be a dad, right? And but also knew I wanted, I want to continue. I've always liked real estate as something, even whenever I was coaching. I've always enjoyed real estate and looking on Zillow at different properties. And my wife and I kind of got into a little routine where we did fix and flips, on some condos that we owned in Destin. During some of the years that I was coaching at Clemson, we had a contractor there that we would go buy it in the spring and pick everything out in the summer. And then the contractor would do the flip in the fall when we weren't there. And then we'd go sell it in the spring and do that a couple of times. But I love just this whole area, the Golden Corner and the foothills, the Blue Ridge Mountains, love Lake Kiowee. So I knew I wanted to do something up there. I felt I was probably going to invest in some spec building, maybe in the reserve or the cliffs, and ended up through some different connections. I met a custom builder that had been building up there on the lake and in the cliffs for a while. Started a custom home building company called Haven Valley, and we should be doing 5 to 6 homes in the cliffs and reserve this year. And so that's gone really well. Really excited about that. I've got a great team that I'm working with there. And then, as you know, you and I have been talking about doing some collaboration on some stuff in the construction field as well. And probably that's probably what I've been most excited about, what I've enjoyed the most, kind of my business endeavors is being able to do business with people that I respect, like yourself, in this Clemson community and other Clemson connections that I have throughout Greenville. And when you're a coach, obviously we'd be able to develop a little bit of relationship. Number one, you don't have a lot of time. You just see each other around and say hello. But you really can't do business with them because you're coaching. So now not many coaches get the opportunity to come back where they coached in the past and hopefully still have a good reputation, but also be young enough to be able to do business with those connections. So that's been really fun for me, being able to do that. And, I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to it. My wife's reminding me that, one of the reasons I stayed, didn't go back into coaching so I could be home more. So
Right.
I got to, when you're ramping up a business, there's a lot of time that goes into that, but there's also a lot of flexibility in that as well. But honestly, I'm loving what I'm doing right now. It's a whole new world that I'm having to learn a lot of things, kind of drinking through a fire hydrant type deal. But what I found one of the best ways is to be able to partner with guys like yourself that have been doing this for a while, that have great reputations. But a lot of the same things that I take from Coach Swaney, principles of why have been successful at Clemson and why he's been successful is, number one, it's about who you surround yourself with. And I think business is no different than football and all those things. There's people that do things the right way, and then there's people that have reputations for doing things the wrong way. So number one, I'm going to always surround myself with good people. And then the other thing that I've learned is, in business, whenever you communicate with people, you answer your emails, you talk to people on the phone, you do what you say you're going to do, you have integrity, all these things. Well, that puts you in like the top 10% in the business world. So just hopefully beat myself in the same disciplines that I had there at Clemson in football that allowed us to be successful. I've seen that already, elevate myself and our business among the crowd a little bit. And obviously having the tie back to Clemson and to Coach Swaney has been very valuable. But yeah, I'm really excited about what we're doing here and about some fun projects. I'm working with Jim Anthony on a great project, Longview community there right outside of Easley, 20 minutes from Clemson, 20 minutes from Greenville. He's been an awesome guy and a new mentor for me. I just like to go ride around with him and walk property and really just kind of learn a lot of things from him there. And so it's been a whole new world, but also to be able to do it at the place that I love, which is Clemson. We're in Clarendon Hall where Coach Swaney lives. We're in our fourth house. I think there's only 21 homes in Clarendon Hall. We're in our fourth house there in Clarendon, and my wife's hoping will be the one that we'll be in for a long time. So that part's been good. And then as we close here, I'm actually going to throw out a quick little story that you don't even know about. Because, before I agreed to come on, I wanted to kind of watch a few of these podcast videos. So I watched one you did with Chad Carson.
Yeah.
And Chad, I don't know if you knew this or not, but Chad and I were actually roommates the first summer of my freshman year.
Oh, wow.
And we were in the shoeboxes. And so it was just that one summer. And Chad was awesome. He's a couple of years older and really just kind of a mentor for me. And so he was great for me for that summer, introducing me to everybody, showing me how to do everything, and obviously a great role model, very disciplined, hard worker. And so now we fast forward. So now it's my first fall camp, right? Let's say 2 months later. And of course, I'm a freshman walk-on. So it's time for the tryouts for the kickoff team. Well, I wasn't going to get the tryout because I'm a walk-on freshman. I'm going to be basically the tackling dummy for the on kickoff return. I'm going to be on the scout team. And what was going to happen was you were going to have the guys trying out for the team. We're going to run down full speed. I was trying to go block them. They're supposed to kind of run through you and then go make the tackle. Well, the first guy I had in my line was actually Keith Adams. So I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go. I'm like 175, 180 pounds. So Keith comes full speed. He hits me, and I don't get knocked down. I kind of get knocked to the side a little bit. And then there was another guy, and then it was Chad Carson. I'm like, oh great, finally, I got my buddy Chad. And he's going to take care of me. Yeah. Oh, this is where I also learned a valuable lesson. There is no going half speed on the field. Chad ran through me so hard. The first thing that hit was the back of my head. And I remember like, man, you were my roommate, my buddy. Chad kind of told me, he kind of walked by me afterwards and was like, how do you like that, roomie? Something like that. So I always have that memory right there.
Yeah.
But it was also a learning part to hey, football is a full speed, violent game, and I give Chad a hard time. But yeah, Chad's a guy I really need to go spend some more time with, because he's done an incredible job here in the Clemson area. And
incredible guy.
And
super guy.
Awesome guy.
Super smart guy too.
Yeah, but I wanted you. I knew Chad was here with you. I wanted to make sure you knew that story.
I did not know that.
Chad,
That's a great story.
Sure, you could and ask Chad about that. He'll probably get a kick out of hearing about that again.
Well, one of the things that I admire about Chad is he is so humble.
Yeah,
I mean,
he is.
You can hardly tell that he ever played a sport.
Right.
I mean, he's trimmed up.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't look like the linebacker that he was in college, but
exactly.
I mean, he was a hard hit, and he's very humble, and he's a super smart guy.
Yeah.
I've gotten to be really good friends and close to Chad over the years, and he's been, even though he's younger than me, I've learned as much from him as anybody over the years. But he's definitely a good person to talk to, real estate wise. He's got that podcast, Coach Carson. I think he's done really well with that. He wrote a book, and he's done well with that. And so, speaking to humbleness, we'll end on this. I could talk to you for hours. So maybe we can do it again another time. But I've been really impressed with you and your humble nature as well. I know you could have gone to a lot of places. I think there's probably a long list of coaches out there that would have hired you after you left South Florida. And the name of this podcast, Experience Matters, and it really does matter. You've had tremendous amount of experience in your football career, and I know you could be coaching at a lot of places, and you're choosing to raise your family here. It says a lot about you. It says a lot about you're strongly convicted and you're a family guy, and how much you love Clemson, love this institution, and I'm sure in the back of your mind, just like any athlete, you probably think about from time to time. There's nobody would blame you if you ever got back into it. But I think it's cool that you're trying a new career. From the ground up, and the amount since we first started talking to now, like all the stuff that you've learned. I mean, I can tell why you've been successful in your life, because you're a humble guy, you're a smart guy, and when you want something, you go get it. And so I can't remember who I was talking to they said that about you too. Said that Jeff's a guy that if he wants something, he goes and gets it, and he works hard, and that's something that's missed a lot these days. People just want to snap their fingers and get instant gratification, and you've earned everything that you've gotten, and there's no doubt that you're going to be successful with Haven Valley, and hopefully the projects that you and I are working on together as well. That collaboration will bring success to both of us. So, and I really appreciate you. Really appreciate you coming on the podcast with me, and hopefully we can do it again.
I would love to.
All right. Thanks, Chet.
Thank you.